Meg The Stallion closed out the festival on Sunday. Of course, the previous night, it was, of course, a great performance by Missy Elliott. But a lot of people are commenting about her last set. In fact, Janelle Monae performed as well on Friday night. That also had some folks talking as well, especially when she flashed her breasts as she was singing about her areola. That was also, again, happening on the stage as well. So today, India.Arie made a comment with regards to what took place. So go ahead and pull up her post, which was on Instagram, folks. Pull it up. She goes, the issue is what is context? Humanity does everything, but does everything belong in a stage? No. Is everything for kids? No. Is everything for everybody? No. So when we, as a culture, make something like this mainstream, it shows a lack of discretion and discernment. To those in the comments who laugh at anyone who wants these things for our culture, you certainly have that right. Just as many folks have the right to want our mainstream international export, our music, to show us in a respectful light. I like to go on the record saying this won't age well, and that's my issue. I love Janelle and Meg the way I love us all, and I don't like this moment. Don't bother debating me, LOL. She said, I do this for 25 years. So she had those comments. And then, of course, she also, again, so when the backlash happened and folks were commenting left and right, she then addressed the issue on her stories. Let me go to it real quick here. Okay, give me a second. And so if you go to my iPad, please. So she posted this. So this is happening today. Then she posted, I hate defending simple logic, so I'm going to just say this. This is not an issue with any of my sisters, period. I'm an old school, long-time affirming voice for women. My record speaks for itself. I love humanity, even in all this bullshit, LOL. And all I'm saying is context matters. Debate that if you want, LOL, but I said what I said. And why did I say it? Because just like everyone else, I'm entitled to my options, but also I do this work my whole adult life. The work of uplifting and loving and affirming and supporting the wellness of black women and all people at large. How effective I was, I guess depends on who you ask. But for 20 plus years, I ran 100 miles an hour at all times in the name of healing. So when I see something that sparks my personal mission, I speak. There's not scandal here, just one woman's opinion. But what I would never allow is for anyone to paint me as a person who would use other women for kindling in the burning down of the patriarchy. No, 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 no. I love all female artists because I know firsthand how hard it is to be one. I've released 8 albums and have myself played the Essence main stage 6 times. What I see here is the mainstreaming of cults that, in my honest opinion, should be adult-only entertainment. And I've been saying this same thing for over 20 years. Why? Some could say my ideals created a less successful business model, LOL. But I stand by them because my gut tells me to. So much more to say, but I don't feel like it. I'm in a big real-life moment and having a bunch of stuff going on. Also, in case you missed it, protecting my peace in 2023. She then puts, I'm open for a smart debate or a real conversation, but I don't do this social media self-propel outrage BS. I put me first in my life. I do this for self-care thing for real. Lastly, in case anyone missed it, I do not make a practice of publicly criticizing my sisters. My thoughts are around Essence Festival and context, which really is logic. I'm not addressing this anymore. Peace. Then she goes, why is it so hard for people to understand? It's crazy to me the level of explanation needed. Why is everything a thing? It's you, not me, LOL. All right. So when she talks about its essence, what India is saying there is that Essence Festival has always been about promoting powerful black women. It's been promoting the image of sisters. And so what she is laying out here is that when you see, because what happened was, and I'm not sure if I shot any of it. Let's see here. So during Megan's set, she called up the audience. She called up different audience members on 3 separate occasions to come on stage and twerk. And that's exactly what happened. And this was actually during her show. And so people were, again, on the stage, and they were dancing. Now, so when she's talking about Essence folks, she's talking about those putting it on. What are you projecting? And then what then began to happen is there are a lot of people who then begin to say, hey, this is not what Essence is all about. I can tell you, as somebody who was sitting center row on the 7th row, literally right in front of the stage, I saw a number of people, older black folks, walk the hell out. There were some who had children with them, teenagers, as they walked out as well. And then, of course, Meg's whole set, every single one of her songs was saying the same thing, what she always talks about. And it all involves sex. So we have to ask the question, okay, your Essence Festival, you had 50 years of hip hop, and you had Jermaine Dupri, you had Ludacris, you had T.I., you had Ice Cube, you had Ice-T, you had Trina, Missy Elliott, all these different acts. The question that we do have to ask ourselves is, are there certain acts that should be in an adult-only space? And the other question is Essence right to promote a Meg The Stallion and the show that Janelle Monae put on? India.Arie says context. We're taking your phone calls on this. I'm going to go to my panel and discuss this as well. If you want to weigh in, give us a call, folks. 202-890-1199. 202-890-1199. Let us know if you were actually at Essence Fest, if you were actually at Janelle Monae's show or Megan The Stallion show, and love to hear that. Uncle Luke did weigh in. I thought this was interesting. So do y'all have this tweet? He goes, so what happened was the folks at Essence posted a video of Janelle Monae showing her breast. He goes, what is this girl going through? She's never been out there like this. Is it a midlife crisis? Then many folks said, really, Luke? You of all people saying this here? All right, let's get into it. Niambe, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on what India.Arie is saying here in terms of what was presented on that stage.
Well, look, I mean, people have their opinions. I mean, everybody's going to feel differently. I think Essence knew full well what they were doing when they invited Janelle Monae, whose breasts are freely shown on her album that's out right now, and Megan The Stallion, whose music has always been very explicit and very adult. So they knew what they were booking. I think, her point about context, I think, could be made about lots of things, because Juvenile was also performing Back That Ass Up at this same Essence. And so I'm always interested when women become the sort of targets for critiques about sexuality and over-sexualization. Now, I don't think India.Arie was attempting to call out those two women in particular, but I think perhaps she feels like people like my mother feel, or people like my aunties feel, who feel like this isn't the venue. This is crass behavior that should be somewhere else. I mean, I think at this point, we should probably stop being shocked by respectability politics. And I think there's a conversation to be had here, but I don't think that anything India.Arie said is anything that we haven't heard before or anything that we are unfamiliar with. I think people have very different visions and versions of what their feminism looks like, or what it looks like to uplift and uphold Black women. And I think, you have younger generations who say, we don't actually care about any of that because we have a right to the full range of human expression, even if it's raunchy, even if it's sexy, because quiet is kept. People thought this about Black women before these women even existed. So it doesn't matter whether they come out there with turtlenecks and sway back and forth. People are going to think what they're going to think. So, I mean, I think it's just a difference of opinion that this will never be resolved. I mean, this has been going on for time immemorial.
Teresa, is it respectability politics, though? Because if what I'm hearing is, all right, you're talking about the previous acts that you've seen. Essence is actually, for years, next year's going to be the 30th anniversary of the music festival, for years has really focused on an adult audience. Now you're talking about really a 25-54. So now the question, and obviously, in order to remain relevant, then you still are having popular artists today. So the question then becomes, is this a culture clash between generations, or is it a question of saying, okay, because look, I remember Janet Jackson had her show, which was very sexually provocative on stage, but it wasn't as in your face, if you will, with the language as Meg The Stallion. And I can compare those two because I was at both, I've been at Essence the last 15, 16 years, and I remember the Janet Jackson set.
Well, personally, I grew up in a very traditional household. So some of the ways, that women are carrying themselves in the music industry, for me, it's just a little bit of distasteful. I feel like, I'm in my 30s. So part of the music that I love was the R&B, the soul, the classics, the India.Aries, the Erykah Badu's. And so that type of music actually was empowering. I think, some of the abilities that and the representation that the Essence Fest, which was hashtag Ratchet Fest, that happened. The comments, I was going back and forth. I mean, personally, again, I'm uncomfortable with, some of the actions because, again, I have men look at me as a beautiful Black woman and think that I am almost like some of the artists that are doing these twerks and expecting me to do whatever, right? They may not be saying it out loud, but some of their attentions are guided towards that practice. And so I would probably say those, the newer generation, yes, they are finding themselves differently. The music is very different. We are rarely hearing music that, is about uplifting and empowering. You may get a line or two out of these nuanced artists, but if we were to go back to basics and we go, to real sold out concerts and what it looked like, it wasn't, all this, sex everywhere, right? And so I think going to your questions about intergenerational pretty much communication with this culture war, not war, but communication may actually look like between the old Essence and maybe the new day Essence. I'm sure Essence is just still trying to find a balance on what that looks like, but we also have to remember the type of artist that has been coming out in the last 10 years, right? And what's been trending. And these type of artists are, some of them are just getting play because they have the most social media followers and now they end up on the main stage versus actually creating music that was really inspiring. So for me, I'm good on both of them. If we really look at the lyrics, and most of these young girls, I'm seeing them twerking, and I'm talking like young as young as 8 or 9 years old doing this, right? And then they're at school twerking on tables. It's one, yes, I'm looking at the parenting, but then two, it's, this is the type of music that gets you across the finish line. So also me even seeing some of these seasonal, so like Janet Jackson, some of these seasonal artists, go in that direction, and all of a sudden they're wearing, salacious outfits. It's just like, yo, you're like 55. So for me, I'm good. I'm looking just for good music, but I think all the extra stuff where you have to actually sell, not the music or the words, because we could barely hear the lyrics nowadays because of all the auto-tunes and all this other stuff. So it's like more so I'm listening more so for the beat and then looking at this person, how they're dressing. So for me, I'm good on Essence Fest. I think it missed the mark for me on how it actually interprets, the empowerment of Black women. I didn't feel empowered. More so, I just felt like, great, we're feeding into the narrative on what it takes to actually be in the music industry as a Black woman.
And I do not, because what I'm looking for is a video when Jan Jackson performed, and it was the first. It wasn't her last appearance, and I must have it on my laptop, not on my phone. But I do remember 2016 when Ciara performed, and there were some people in the audience who were kind of like, "Did she just do that on stage?" This is what they were talking about. One of the things here, Larry, is artists on stage who are performing. I think when we talk about Essence, what you're also looking at is when you have a range of ages that are actually in the audience, and there were teenagers, adults, seniors, seasoned saints, all in that Superdome, and so that's what I think is also different here because Essence has so many different acts on the bill that if you stay for all of the concerts, I mean, you're talking about a plethora of folks. And so I know some folks who were there for the Ladies of Hip Hop, and they were like, I'm only here for that. And then they bounce the later you got into the show.
Roland, I've been to Essence a few times, and you're right in terms of the acts that they book. It's for different generations. You like Frankly Beverly and Mays, formerly known as, or if you like Keith Sweat. I'm another example of an artist when we talk about Meg and some of these other female hip hop artists. Roland, I'm old enough to remember 96, 97 when hardcore, Lil' Kim came out with hardcore. So the reason I highlight that is that there's a long tradition, not in music in general, but hip hop in particular, about certain lyrics that some people might find offensive. But I think that's what's really important here. And I think context matters in terms of India.Arie when she talked about that, and that there's some forms of music is appealing to some people and not appealing to others. Now, as a parent, I've always told my son, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I grew up listening to hip hop throughout my life with explicit lyrics, so I don't want to be a hypocrite and say there's certain songs you may not can listen to, but certainly have a conversation about it. But I think overall, when we have this conversation, particularly about Meg and some of the other artists we described, we need to have a conversation in the Black community, particularly how Black women's bodies have been policed, but also have a conversation about what some people find appealing as it relates to music. And depending on your generation, certain things might be okay with you and certain things may not. I think the last point I want to make about India.Arie's comments, and I think this is really important for people who post on social media, is that you may have an opinion. I have opinions on a lot of different things, but I don't post it on social media. She said she knew that it would end up going viral and people would have thoughts about it. So obviously she was okay with taking whatever critiques people had to offer. But for me, sometimes you think it, you don't always have to post it, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right, folks. First of all, somebody here posted in our message board. Somebody said that, hold on one second. I used to work for Essence Music Festival when it was more toned down. Macy Gray, Shaka Khan, Charlie Wilson, Fantasia, etc. What a time. And again, so all different opinions. That was some of Meg The Stallion on Sunday night at Essence. Folks, again, have been talking about it. Was it too much? Was that improper for the Essence Festival stage? Does that actually speak to Black female empowerment? Also, Janelle Monae with her show that some deem to be highly sexual as well. Yvette Thomas, Oklahoma City. Yvette, you're on the air. What's up? What's your comment?
Yes, my name is Yvette Thomas from Oklahoma City, and I think it was totally inappropriate. I feel that women should leave something to the imagination. That's sexy, that's alluring. What they're doing is trashy. I think it was disrespectful to the legacy of Essence, and I think that it's doing nothing but perpetuating the stereotypical assertion of that's given to Black women. So it's just trash. It's nothing to me but a pornographic prostitution, live pornographic prostitution show. They're giving the audience the porn, and they're prostituting for the record label, and they're degrading themselves and all black women. Black women are black queens and should act regally. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Yvette. Iris Lee from Wisconsin. Iris, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What's your comment?
Hi. My comment is the Jill Scott anthem. I think you should have led with that. The anthem, the way she worded it, was just, you felt that. That was I didn't attend the Essence Festival. I've seen,
But there was no controversy over her anthem. No, I was there. I know what you're talking about. And folks didn't walk out on her anthem. They did on the Megan performance.
Well, which came first? Let me ask that question then.
What do you mean, which came first? Jill Scott performed on Saturday night.
Megan The Stallion?
No, Jill first of all, Janelle Monae.
Scott came first?
No, she did not. Janelle Monae performed on Friday night. Jill Scott performed on Saturday night. And then you had on Sunday Megan The Stallion.
Oh, I just think that's a better topic for us to discuss.
But that's not the topic we're discussing, though.
Constantly.
But that's not the topic we're discussing. So it's not a question what's a better topic. The reality is India.Arie's comments has led to a lot of conversation on social media about what is right and what is proper and what is respectable for Essence Festival, not Jill Scott's anthem.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
I agree somewhat. It's generational, you know.
Okay. All right, Iris, thanks so much. Heather Richmond from Atlanta, Georgia. Heather, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I wasn't at the festival, but I did watch it on Hulu. I think the bigger issue is Essence is trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up or go forward. I did read that Hakeem Holmes, who's now the VP of the festival, is 29, and he's trying to appeal to a younger audience. So in that, if this is what the younger audience wants, clearly that's the direction that they're going to continue to move in. But what they're going to do is isolate what they're calling now is the Aunties Festival, because those are the women who can afford to go and be at a festival for 3-4 nights and enjoy all of the different amenities that go along with that. So if you do want that particular demo to continue to come, you're going to have to figure out how to make a balance so that they're not exposed to things that they don't necessarily want to participate in, but younger people who find it not the same, aren't offended by it, and who aren't willing, or who are willing to sit through it and actually enjoy it and will want to attend, with the quote-unquote aunties who want to do the other things that Essence offer, but may not necessarily want to participate in those sort of, I'll just say, Megan The Stallion-esque sort of activities or concerts.
Okay. All right. I certainly appreciate it, Heather. Thanks a lot. Nyambe, the thing here, when you think about the different acts, if you will, okay, and I think this is the thing that people have to look at when you start talking about the performers, and that is there were certainly different performers all throughout the show, all weekend. So it wasn't like you had sort of one genre that took place all weekends. And so I'm trying to sit here. Let me do this here. Let me go. I'm switching iPads here. So folks, hold that B-roll. Let me go to this iPad. Nope, wrong one. Give me a second here. And again, because I think, again, we talk about context. And so this is night one. Night one, you had Lauryn Hill, who closed. Then you had, before Lauryn Hill, you had Dougie Fresh and commemoration of 50th anniversary of hip hop, which featured Big Daddy Kane, EPMD, KRS-One, Slick Rick. Janelle Monae performed as well. Before her, Ari Lennox, Jagged Edge, Tim's, and Toby Nwigwe. And then, of course, you also had hosted by Dion Cole. Now, That was night one. Then when you go to night two, you had the closer, Missy Elliott. Before her, Jill Scott. Before them, you had a celebration of hip hop from the South, Jermaine Dupri, featuring Big Boy, Gucci Mane, Lil Jon, Ludacris, T.I. Before that, Ice Cube, DJ Quick, E40, Ice-T, JJ Fad, Lady of Rage, Yo-Yo, and also performances by Coco Jones, Monica as well. And so let me go back to, and then of course that was night two. Then night three, the close was Meg The Stallion. You had Wizkid before her. Then you had this curation of the celebration of hip hop by Angie Martinez, which featured Eve, Mia X, Remy Ma, Salt and Pepper, Trina, and then performances by Kiss Daniel, Mooney Long, and others. And so I guess here, bottom line, and this is how a lot of people actually do this, Niambi. They like some artists, and what they'll do is they'll stay to watch them, and then they'll leave and go get something to eat or go to a suite or go somewhere else, and they don't like the particular artist, and then they actually might come back. And so that's also how a lot of people also operate when they're there. I can tell you what typically happens, those early shows, I would say anything from 7 to 9, especially in the front sections, damn near empty. But most people are coming there for the final 3 acts. And so it varies as to how people, so you have all of these different options based upon your musical taste. You don't actually have to stay for all of the concerts.
Absolutely. And what is not for you is not for you. I think it's interesting, again, that we picked out these 2 young women to clutch our pearls. But when you read that list of everyone who was there, multiple people on that list, men included, had very sexually explicit lyrics. Now, if this is a conversation just about that, then that's a conversation we should have. I think it's convenient, right, to talk about the sexiest, the most sort of provocative. But if we're going to have a conversation about the sexualization of Black people and Black women in particular, then let's have that conversation and sort of not pick out these 2 artists as the sort of scourge of the Black community, if you will. And I'm not suggesting that India.Arie was trying to say that. But yes, I mean, people will call them trashy people. I mean, like the caller did, people will call them all kinds of things. But again, it's all about what your taste is. And if this is not for you, you shouldn't go see them. And I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't be able to go to any of the concert. There clearly were a lot of different kinds of artists to select from if it was your fancy. But again, Meg The Stallion and Janelle Monae and some of these other people are not making music for everybody. I too am young enough to remember when hardcore came out, and we had the same conversations about Little Kim and Foxy Brown. We had a lot less energy for the Lukes of the world, and some of these other, men who were also making sexually explicit lyrics. But nonetheless, this conversation will be a conversation that we will continually have, because I think it's unfair to sort of lay the sort of burden and the stigma of Black women's over-sexuality or over-sexualization at the feet of these young women, when again these ideas about who we are sexually and otherwise have been around for centuries. And it didn't matter whether we were covered up, it didn't matter whether we were sort of nude in the way that we might have been traditionally. The sexualization of Black women is not going to stop because some Black women decide to cover up, or some Black women decide to change the lyrics in their song. I think these performers have a right to present themselves how they want to. If the marketplace doesn't want it, the marketplace won't buy it. But there is clearly an audience there. And so, yes, some people walked out, but I'm sure there were others who stayed because this is what they wanted to see and wanted to hear on their at their Essence experience. I do think this is a classic situation of trying to please too many people, if you will, because the audience in age is going to range quite largely. And so what a person like my mother would want to see and what I want to see and what my niece wants to see are not going to be the same. I think this is one of those moments.
Teresa,
trying to make money.
Teresa, I think also what you're dealing with here as well is, again, let's just look at just pure numbers. Essence Festival is going to be 30 years old next year. Okay? So that means if you went to your first Essence when you were 25, and somebody posted the first lineup, man, I wish I could find it. I forgot who tweeted that. And it was the first lineup. And it was Luther Vandross, it was Frankie Beverly and Mays, it was just a number of Gladys Knight. And so if you were 25 when Essence first started, you're now 54. And what you've always had adult R&B artists. Then in the last several years, then you've seen Chance the Rapper, you've seen Kendrick Lamar, last year Nicki Minaj closed. And so you've seen a migration of those artists. You had the compilation of Bad Boy, you had the compilation of Master P and his group as well. And so the issue that Essence has to deal with, you have extreme loyalty from a whole bunch of people who've been riding with you for a long time, who've been buying tickets, but you also want to have a 40th and a 50th Essence Festival because it generates 90% of the profits for the company.
You're right, and that's the question they have to answer. I mean, but if you were to do a recap video from the 25 years ago till today, of what we just saw at Essence Festival, it's two different reactions. Like, I'm not, coming to a concert to look at people shake their behinds all day. It's not making sense. If I wanted to do that, I could probably just go to a strip club or something. But I think the essence of Essence Festival for me was that bold, beautiful, saturated music, that really touched souls. They had, really good artists. They had really good conversations. And I think now it's more so I'm looking at artists that more so look like performers than the artistry of it. And so for me, like I said before, I'm standing, and I was getting some text messages about this, just like, oh, you need to express yourself more. And I'm like, I am being expressive just with my clothes on. So I think there's, as Essence is trying to figure out, the best way to figure out, maybe it's Essence 2, right? Essence Fest 2, like for a younger generation. But I think the original Essence Fest, they need to stick to branded messaging because, audience, even the age bracket, I'm sure I'm not alone when I'm in my 30s, still hoping and wishing that we still had that, like bring her, she's a great artist. There's other artists that aren't doing what we just seen that are really, streaming charts and really, impacting a little differently than what we are. So I just think Essence Fest should really just be the example of what they used to be than something that they're trying to graduate to in order to reach another audience.
I'm going to come to you in a second, Larry. I want to go back to the phone lines here. Terrence Jackson from South Carolina. Terrence, what's your comment?
So me and my wife were actually talking about this. We were in attendance at the Essence Festival. And number one, the concert is just way too damn long, getting out at 2 a.m. in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. Honestly, like by the time you got to Sunday, I honestly think that the majority of people that were walking out, they were just tired. I think the Lil Wayne surprise concert just kind of like wore a lot of people out. But if you go back to Saturday, even like in the seats and everything, you saw all different types of women that were kind of twerking and backing it up in their seats. Pretty much everybody was vibing. So I really think that we just need to be open to how women have evolved. And there's different kinds of women. You could see that there were like different age groups of women and men that were there at the concert, which this was our second time attending the festival. We saw more of like our age group. I'm 38. My wife is 36, but you saw more like mid-20s, early 30s that were there. And so there were people that were vibing with Meg The Stallion on Sunday, even though we left, but we were just tired at the end of it. But it was a good time. And I just think people just need to be open to like where we are all going, and we're just not the same. and there's different musical tastes for everybody. But, you know, there was a vibe for anybody that came, just like you mentioned earlier. The lineup was so diverse that you could literally pick and choose who you wanted to see and how you wanted to see them.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. But let me say this about all the people who are complaining about it going long. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. Y'all, this ain't the first damn time the Essence Fest been long. It's not. Listen, the first concert starting around 7, okay? The last one's going to end around 1:30. You don't have to stay there all 6.5 hours. You don't have to, okay? And so if you actually want to stay all 6.5 hours, take your ass to sleep, take a nap. I've been going 16 years, okay? And I've been there from the beginning to the end. I didn't leave early either night. I left early last year. I thought Nicki Minaj, I couldn't deal with the lip syncing. Sorry. But again, that's what you're dealing with here. So, y'all, the whole point of diverse lineup is to give you lots of options. I know a lot of people who said, yo, I'm skipping Friday night. I don't want to see Lauren. I don't want to see Janelle, but I want to be there for Missy. And so those things happen. And so this is what happens. The reality is you cannot have an event that's going to please everybody when you're talking about multiple demographics, even among African Americans. But I also think India.Arie is also talking about, when we keep talking about the music and the festival, she's also talking about the music industry and what is being presented. I was telling you about, it was Mark Morial who tweeted out the original lineup. He was the mayor of New Orleans when it happened, y'all. And so, again, I just want to put, for the purpose of this context, I'm going to go to Larry, then go to the phone calls. This was the original lineup. Are y'all seeing it? This was the original lineup at the first Essence Festival 29 years ago. This was it right here. As you see, y'all, you had Luther Vandross, Gladys Knight, Patti LaBelle, Anita Baker, Boyz II Men, Barry White, B.B. King, Mary J. Blige, the OJs with Gerald Levert, Aretha Franklin, Maze featuring Frankie Beverly, Earth, Wind & Fire, Gerald Albright, and Aaliyah. So, Larry, looking at that, Aaliyah was the youngest person performing. If you want to talk about what was appealing to a younger audience at that time, obviously, Boyz II Men, but this is sort of what they're up against. You've had this allegiance from grown folk who've grown up with R&B music, and you just sort of have a clash of taste, if you will. Larry?
I think what's interesting about that list, and, we talked about the individuals that performed the last, a couple of days ago, is also it kind of talk about the black community and black music in general, which is always evolving. So I didn't see any hip hop artists on that list, which is interesting. And now you talked about it is essentially, obviously, with the 50th anniversary of celebrating hip hop. So obviously there's a focus, but also anchored in some of the more recent hip hop artists in terms of Meg and some of the other folks that you mentioned.
Remember, this is 1995. Remember, this is 1995. I mean, even though hip hop, let's just be clear. Who are you? Look, if we really want to have this conversation, it's a lot of places they were not trying to have hip hop artists. There's a certain crowd they did not want to have there. You look at this lineup, they were appealing to grown ass people.
Yeah, people who had jobs and money.
Right. I mean, yeah.
They had mortgages. So you're right. They were specifically looking for a particular kind of crowd. And as Essence has evolved and black music has evolved, and so I think I want to note, Roland, we talk about generation age groups. There are people in their 40s and 50s rocking with Meg now. Let's be clear. So I think that's really important. Once again, we talk about the history of hip hop. So so obviously 29 years ago, they were certainly looking for a certain, in terms of, black folks with a certain socioeconomic background, so to speak, who had deep pockets, had some money in there, who could spend on hotels and the show, et cetera. But once again, that it is evolved in terms of who you're trying to attract. So now they're trying to attract a younger generation. And in that last 29 years, hip hop's popularity has exploded. So once again, they're being consistent with who you're trying to attract.
Well,
But this
which
is
also
a
explains,
challenge.
look, that's why you had Tim's and other Afrobeat artists on. You didn't have any Afrobeat artists on a lineup 5 years ago. But how musical taste changed. I want to go to the phone lines. Rakesh from Harlem. Rakesh, what's up?
Hello?
Here.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, yeah, this is Eric from Harlem. I want to say that Essence knew what they was getting into when they booked Megan and when they booked Janelle. If Essence felt that way, they shouldn't have booked them. They knew what they was getting into when they booked them, and they knew that the younger generation was there, and they wanted the money. So they can't have it both ways. If they felt any kind of way, or if anybody that was there felt any kind of way, then why did Essence book them in the first place then?
Well, first of all, the criticism is not coming from Essence. It's coming from attendees and also the comments from India.Arie. But I get your point. We surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Marquez Gutner from Dallas. Marquez, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? How you doing, Roland?
Doing great.
My thought is the line. It seems like year after year they keep pushing the line. So what's going to happen when some young brother is up there on stage and he pulls out something that is not expected to be pulled out? It seems like that's where.
Hold up. Like what? A joint? Because guess what? Lil Wayne, his performance.
No.
He lit up he lit up on stage.
Right. Well, I'm not talking about a job. I'm talking about the sexual orifice.
I got it. Well, guess what?
That belongs.
Guess what? Janelle Monae showed her areola. Lil Wayne performed with his shirt off.
Okay.
I'm telling you, Howard. Hold up.
I'm talking about the jump.
You think I'm lying? Let me find you a photo.
But that's where it's going. That's where it's going.
Okay.
I think that's we're gonna be shocked one day when that happens, and so what are people? How are people gonna react when that happens?
Got it.
Because you just see it coming.
All right.
Yeah.
Marquez, thanks a lot. Bill Smith from California. Hey, Bill. You're on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
This is a very important topic. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Sorry. My feelings on this subject is this. I don't think I think India.Arie is absolutely correct. This is not for everybody. We got black people, young black people out here trying to raise children. Our black people are up against enough trying to raise children. Well, I would be willing to bet there are not very many few black people out there that would allow their children to be twerking at 13, 14 years old, putting their breasts out, this and that and the other. A short story. My son I have two grandkids. One of my grandkids was here one day, and he was singing a song, and he was 3 or 4 years old, and he happened to say, "Back your ass up." My grandson turned around and wanted to jump all over him. I said, whoa, time out. Where did he get that from? You're the one playing the music. So, I mean, I'm not against this. They could have this, but there should be a time and a place for everything. They should announce, this is going to be a hip-hop show tonight. This is going to be this tonight. And so parents say, oh, no, we're not going to the hip-hop show. Then the kids come home, they want to sneak on their phones and watch this crap and so forth and so on. It's not good. Thank you very much for allowing me to express my opinion. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks a bunch. Go to my iPad. This is Lil Wayne performing with no shirt on. So just want to let y'all know he was showing his areola as well. Rob Jennings from Benton Harbor, Michigan. Rob, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What's up? All right. We got a couple of calls that I want to go to. I mean, look, the thing you said, Niambe, thing is very clear. I mean, literally in the history of music, there have always been this, there's been this discussion. Hell, gospel music. There were folk who said, Thomas Dorsey, what are you doing? And then when the Winans did their music, what are you doing? When the Clark Sisters hit song was a club hit during the disco era, folks said sacrilegious. You've had that. I just think that what you're dealing with here, when you have an event where you have multiple generations, you're going to have that clash, especially when for a long time, you can always count on there being R&B artists who didn't shake that ass, who didn't use lyrics like, look, I've said, like, literally, I did, I'm gonna tell you right now, I did crack a joke around the folk around us with Megan performing. I said, hey, does Megan have any songs where it don't involve beat the pussy up? Yes, I said that. Because that's like literally, we were sitting there and I was cracking up laughing. I was kind of like, do all the lyrics sound the same? And the folk around, we were all cracking up laughing. But that's literally her style, who she appeals to. Her songs are not like a multiple range of Beyonce. That's not her lane.
It's not, but I also think, look, I think it's interesting that people clutch their pearls over rappers in particular because there are very explicit R&B songs. They sound different to the ear, perhaps even nicer, but they
don't use the explicit language.
But when Aaliyah says age ain't nothing but a number, throwing down ain't nothing but a thing, what was that about? Because the 95 Aaliyah was married to a Robert Kelly who was an adult man.
Yeah.
So we can talk about, I'm just saying, there are ranges of things that we can discuss.
Yes.
We can kind of opine about a time when it was kinder and gentler, but the music of 1995 was still very sexual. I remember listening Doggy Style in my mother's car, getting in trouble because of the lyrics of Snoop songs. So I just think we have a long-standing discussion that comes up year after year. But in this event in particular, I think people do feel a certain kind of ownership around it and feel like there should be borders, right? That this is an uplifting women empowerment event and these people don't fit. But I think while we're doing that and pointing our fingers, we have to be very careful not to reify these same stereotypes and to do the good woman, bad woman thing. I don't think that's helpful either. And I don't like the language that people are using to talk about these people because one, neither Megan The Stallion or Janelle Monae are children. They don't make music for children. And I think the last caller was just right, which is if children are hearing these things, then we need to talk to parents about them. But I was a kid too. We're all going to listen. I listened to dirty Millie Jackson records when I was a kid. I didn't have any business listening to. So kids will find a way. Nonetheless, you know, this sort of hand-wringing about the children, all that always comes up over and over and over again. But again, the lineup was announced in advance. People knew who were going to be there. People had an opportunity to listen to their music in advance and say, I don't want to participate in this. This is not my crowd. I'm going to go to Missy or I'm going to go see Dougie Fresh, but the rest of it, I'm going to leave. I just think this is a hard thing to do. Because like you said, you have people who've been going for the last 30 years. You have people who do feel ownership about what this ought to be, right? What this should look like, how women should present themselves. And I just think it's going to be a tussle.
Niambe, one of the YouTube folks said Aaliyah was singing "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number" in some big ass baggy clothes. Larry, what's your comment? Larry, what's your comment?
Even a little bit funny.
Larry, what's your comment?
With a full-grown
hold on. You said that. I'm just reading you what the comment was. Larry, your comment.
This is an ongoing, like Dr. Carter talked about, this is an ongoing topic in the Black community about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Also want to highlight, we talked about, you talked about Luke a little earlier. I'm also old enough to remember Two Live Crew and how they used to set it off in their concerts. And then, obviously them being arrested and challenges they faced their concerts throughout the United
But I
States.
don't think they ever were on the Essence stage.
Oh no, they didn't mess. No, they weren't going to make it on
That's hold on. But see that. But again, no. I just want everybody to understand. I'm gonna give y'all a story. Matter of fact, damn, I need to find the photo. And it's a true story. So, Uncle Charlie was performing, and Trey Songz stopped by his dressing room. And I think Trey performed the previous night. And I dropped by the dressing room. I got to find the photo. And so I was, of course, I was clean. Uncle Charlie was clean. And so Trey Songz said, man, both of y'all clean. And this is exactly what Uncle Charlie said. He said, Trey, it's some grown-ass people out there. He said, and when you sing in front of grown-ass people, you need to dress like you talking to grown-ass people. Because Trey had on some jeans. I think when he performed, he had a wife beater on the stage, which he took it off. So the following year, Trey Songz was back. Trey came out in a tuxedo. I think he eventually got out of the tuxedo. So he's backstage. He had hurt his ankle on stage. So I go into the dressing room, and I said, I see you rocking that tuxedo. He said, oh, I was listening to you and Uncle Charlie last year. So the point I'm making is, that's really, I think, the clash we're having here. Even when you've had younger artists, others have always said, hey, this is who that Essence audience is. What we have to accept, though, is that the Essence audience changes. And so the question then becomes, do you change? And you grapple with that. And I can tell you, talking with people who the previous owners of Essence, they also grapple with, look, it was a battle when they decided to stop inviting Frankie Beverly and Mays. Ed Lewis said, as long as I am running Essence, Frankie Beverly and Mays will always close Essence Festival. Always. I think for like 15 plus straight years, they were there. There was a point when they didn't invite them back. And it was a huge controversy because they were saying we have to also evolve. And so this discussion, they've actually had in Essence internally, what type of artists, when do you invite them, when are we ready, because you're appealing to different folks.